investigation. First off, I would like to thank the law enforcement agencies and the public out there who are being vigilant, our law enforcement partners who are watching out for others in our community, the understanding and patience of the public as we work to find this individual and bring that person to justice. We know that it's been a difficult day for not only those who have worked with those legislators, but it's also a difficult day for those in the state of Minnesota who are working through this terrible tragedy. Today we have a few speakers who are going to, again, give some updates, and we will be available to answer some questions once all the speakers have had that opportunity to say a few words. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Drew Evans of the BCA.
Thanks, Commissioner. And today we are asking for the public's help at this point in time in locating Vance Luther Bolter, who is a 57-year-old white male who is 6 feet 1 inch tall, 220 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes. I know this name has been reported in the media so far, and we are confirming he's a person of interest that we are looking to locate in relation to this. At this time, we would ask the public, if you do locate him or see him, to call 911. Do not approach him. You should consider him armed and dangerous, and you should call 911 immediately with the information. He was seen last this morning wearing light-colored cowboy hat that you can see up here in the clothing there, with dark-colored long-sleeve collared shirt or coat, light pants, and carrying a dark bag. If you have any tips about the whereabouts or any information that would be helpful, you can call local police department, or you can call our BCA tip line at 877-996-6222, or email us at bca.tips@state.mn.us. We still don't know if additional people are involved, but this individual is the one that we're looking as a person of interest right now, but there may be other people with him, and we would like to speak to anybody that may have had contact with him at any point in time. So please connect with us, even if this has been some time ago today, so that we can follow up and continue to work together to keep our communities safe. And we, as the Commissioner noted, we'll take some questions at the end. But again, we are seeking the assistance of the public in locating him. I want to continue to say, as you see, there's hundreds of law enforcement officers working on this right now for the partners that you see up here today, as well from Champlin, Brooklyn Park, the State Patrol, Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, FBI, ATF, just a myriad of partners working to try to
our family. And so our prayers continuously go out to them. And it's very much a time for us to come together as a community and as a family. And I think people need to see it that way. I want to thank law enforcement, Governor Walz, Commissioner Jacobson, Sheriff Witt, FBI, various counties, local law enforcement. Even with our city of Brooklyn Park, we're seeing a ton of local law enforcement and county law enforcement just supporting our city overall. And we want to thank them for doing that. They're dedicated to keeping us safe and to securing justice. I would say to support them again, if you have information, there'll be information behind me, please share that information. And again, please look and listen for valid information and share that. There will be a time to come together, and I think specifically for the city of Brooklyn Park and within our area, there'll be a time where we come together and we work through what we're going through now as a community. But I want to say this, you know, this individual did this to instill fear. point of view. When I listed all of that law enforcement coming together, that was really us as a state, as a community, from all different walks. As a state, as a community, we're very much going to come together. We're going to see this through, and we're all going to work together to figure this out. So again, I want to thank our law enforcement, and I want to turn it over to the Mayor of Champlain Park.
Good afternoon. My name is Ryan Sabis, Mayor of Champlain, and on behalf of the City of Champlain, our Police Department, and our City Council, I want to extend a heartfelt thoughts and prayers to Senator John Hoffman and Representative Melissa Hortman and their families. We are deeply saddened by the senseless act of violence, and our hearts are with all those that have been affected. Our police department is working close partnership with state, local, and federal agencies to pursue this active investigation. We are incredibly grateful for their swift and responsible professional response and for the collaboration of commitment of every officer involved. We ask everyone to stay attentive, report anything that feels concerning, and most of all, continue to show kindness, respect, and care for one another. This is how we move forward together. And again, thank you all for being here. And again, I think Mayor Winston said it well that Hoffman family and the Hortman family are very much part of our communities, part of our fabric of our communities. And we really wish the families all the best. Thank you.
As folks have said, we'll take a few questions. Please don't forget to, in your first question, introduce yourself, your immediate organization with whom you're with, and if you have a question for a specific individual, call that out. Thank you.
Mark from Fox 9. Do you have an update on Senator Hoffman's condition?
The question was, do we have an update on Senator Hoffman's condition? We don't at this time. The last information we had is that he was out of surgery and was in stable condition at that time, but that certainly experienced significant injuries, so we'll have to continue to monitor that.
You said person of interest, so not a suspect, or is...
He's a suspect, one and the same for this particular case at this point in time.
Okay, so we can say suspect.
You can say suspect.
Adam Buxer with WCCO News. You know this guy is at least affiliated with some sort of security company, according to its own website, that has highly trained security individuals. Can you speak to the level of knowledge this person might have about, using a gun or, different security tactics that might separate him from a typical person walking down the street?
Yes, so the question was regarding the sophistication of the individual based on reports that he owned a security company. I certainly can't get into the details of the investigation. That'll all be part of that, and we'll explore all of that. We're aware of the connections that you reference, and the team will be dissecting that between the investigators, Brooklyn Park Police Department, and all of the state, the local, and federal partners that are working on that. Certainly, an individual will have some familiarity if that's the line of work that they're in with some of the tactics that you noted, but we'll be exploring that more fully.
One question about the photo that we're seeing in the cowboy hat and the jacket. Is that photo taken today?
That photo is today.
And is it from a ring camera at the residence of either of our law enforcement?
The question is it from a ring camera? It's not. This is from a business. So this is at a business location. And there, we believe, as noted, that we believe he's was still in at this time. He was in the Twin Cities area, and that we are continuing to work and follow up on that. We believe he's working to potentially flee the area, and so that's why we're sharing that with that information now, so that we can safely apprehend him.
Is there a way that you're in touch with the TSA? I know Governor Walz has been in contact with federal agents, as you have mentioned with the FBI.
Yeah.
Are airlines, seeing his pictures, so it is important point?
So the question is, are we in contact with TSA? We've been in contact with all of the federal authorities that are relevant to this investigation. We will continue to be.
Are you able to share the time or location that photo was taken today?
The question is, can I share the time and location? This was this morning when this was taken. It was in the city of Minneapolis. That's at this point, I think, all that we can share as we work to follow up on that.
Are there any surveillance or ring camera video from either of the residents where the shootings take place?
The question is, there's surveillance or ring camera. We do have various video from different locations. I don't want to get into specifics as part of the active investigation, but there is video that has been obtained by the investigators.
Can you talk about some of the other locations that you guys are working on, Green Isle, maybe the Green Isle, Fremont, and
So Yeah, we can, the question is, can we talk about some of the other locations? You know, because our teams are very active as part of an active investigation, I can't talk about the specifics. What I will tell you is the two locations you noted in Minneapolis and in Green Isle, they are related to this investigation and the follow-up that the teams are doing.
I'm going to get Ellen. I'm sorry, we're going to give it to Ellen, and then we're going to have one more question.
Can you talk a little bit more about the manifesto and what kind of motivation it might be? We're told that there might be some pro-choice lawmakers on this manifesto. That has anything to do with the motivation here?
At this point in time, it would be premature. The question was, is the manifesto and the information that we have received as their motivations. We are working diligently on that. There's certainly some indications within that, but there's not specifics enough. We have been, this is a very active and fluid investigation. Throughout the day, as you've been waiting, and these teams have been out working out in the field, and they have been gathering more documents and information. So it would be premature for me at this point to really say exactly what the motivation might be from these writings, but we will be continuing to work on that and provide that information when we're able.
Walker, our senior from the search team. Do you have a sense, did they know each other? Like, did this man know either Representative Portman or
after the shooting of Melissa Hortman, the former Speaker of the Minnesota House. But apparently he's not in that neighborhood. He is somewhere. That photo was taken somewhere in Minneapolis, and it was daylight, and he was wearing a cowboy hat. So he got away from the shooting scene. So much for my police instincts. But he was last seen wearing that cowboy hat, described as 6'1", 220 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes. Obviously, if you know anything about him or where he is, local authorities there in Minnesota want to hear from you. Meantime, we take you across the Atlantic. Iran began firing more missiles into Israel moments ago. Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst is live from Tel Aviv with more on that. Trey.
Yeah, John, we have some video captured by our cameraman, Yaniv Turgeman. Off in the skyline, we could see these incoming ballistic missiles. They appeared as if they were headed toward the port city of Haifa in northern Israel. The entirety of the country has gotten an alert to head into bomb shelters. This is still an ongoing event, but you can see this video here just captured by Fox News as these missiles were streaming through the skies of Israel. We do know some of them were intercepted. We could hear some distant booms as some of the advanced missile defense systems were engaging these incoming ballistic missiles. But this is an indication that the Iranians have now launched a fifth wave over the past 24 hours, targeting different parts of Israel. We don't know yet how many of these missiles actually landed and hit targets, but we can tell you this is a significant attack for all of them to come at one time. Certainly, we could see from our vantage.
From Senator Amy Klobuchar, she's making.
Because if you go along the coast from Tel Aviv north along the Mediterranean, you'll to the port city of Haifa, and it does appear that was the city that was targeted. You saw earlier today those images
to find transportation.
Completely destroying an entire block in a neighborhood, killing 2 people and injuring dozens of others. These are very significant and powerful missiles that the Iranians are using, and reports right now indicate that the Israelis are striking a variety of different targets in Iran. I'm just reading from my phone here, John, because there are some initial reports coming in from Haifa of at least 1 impact. And again, we have this video showing you what it was like as these missiles were soaring through the skies of Israel. And again, the initial reports, at least one impact, but when you watch this video, it appears there could be even more than that. We will, in the minutes and hours ahead, get more information from local authorities and, of course, from the IDF to understand just how extensive this recent barrage was. But what we can report at this hour, Iran has launched a fifth wave of ballistic missiles against Israel, targeting the northern port city of Haifa. John?
It is described as like trying to hit a bullet with a bullet when you intercept one of these ballistic missiles, Trey. So although Israel has done amazing things with its Iron Dome and David's sling systems, other anti-ballistic missile systems, you know, low flying and high flying, some will get through apparently.
Yeah, absolutely. And Israeli officials tell us the Americans are indeed helping to shoot down these incoming missiles. They're likely using the Patriot system or even the THAAD system to do so. It's very expensive to shoot down these missiles, and it does take time to prepare the air defenses. And so this is something both the Americans and the Israelis are working on daily, trying to ensure that they are prepared for more barrages of ballistic missiles. And one senior Israeli intelligence source that I spoke with earlier today said, look, they want this conflict to be over in a matter of days, and they believe they can succeed in that objective. But this official warned it will be a very difficult week for the Israeli people, telling civilians to brace for the reality that there will be more damage and more casualties here in Israel, given the fact that the Iranians have one of the most advanced missile programs in the Middle East. We know they have supplied the Russians with missiles that are being used in Ukraine. We've seen the destruction these missiles have caused to major population centers here in Israel, and they are targeting a variety of different things here, making it very challenging for the Israelis to decide where to put their air defense systems, when to activate them, and how to shoot down this amount of fire that's currently happening. John?
Meantime, Prime Minister Netanyahu suggested that there will be more attacks on Iran, that they have many more targets available to them, and that they intend to decapitate Iran's nuclear program. So as these missiles are flying at Israel, there could easily be Israeli attacks on Iran going on right now as well, right?
Absolutely, and I don't want to speculate much on why Haifa is the current target for the Iranians, but we should look at something that happened earlier today. An Israeli official speaking to Fox News said that the Israelis targeted a gas field belonging to the Iranians in the southern part of the country, near to Bandar Abbas. This is very close to the Strait of Hormuz. And it was an indication that the Israelis were looking to send a message to the Iranian regime that they will now start to go after energy infrastructure targets, something that the Iranians previously said would raise everything up a step on the escalation ladder. Because we do have to keep all of this in mind, despite the war that has erupted. And this is a war. People here are calling it a conflict, an exchange of fire. It is a war between the two countries. They are exchanging fire. They are killing people. But amid this war, there are certain red lines that each side has, and energy infrastructure is one of them. And so as we look forward, we can expect both the Israelis and the Iranians to adjust what they're trying to hit. And we heard earlier today from President Trump saying that he wants to see all of this conflict end. And so the question is, will the Israelis and the Americans be able to say enough or do enough to get the Iranians back to the negotiating table? At this point, that seems far-fetched. But this can't go on forever, and that is the big question that ultimately will come after this round of violence slows down and the missile fire that we have seen toward this country slows down. People will start to discuss what comes next, and there is a question of if there will be room for diplomacy or if this will just relentlessly continue. There are certainly many here who say the Israelis will continue to go after both Iran's nuclear program and also a variety of senior officials there to ensure that they meet their objectives. And an Israeli source telling Fox News today there are three objectives: to weaken Iran's nuclear program, to take out the country's ballistic missile program, and to stop what this source calls an existential threat to Israel's safety and security. And this source says if they're able to do that, they would end this round of conflict with Iran. John.
It shouldn't be lost on our viewers that President Trump said that Iran had 60 days to come to the table, make serious concessions, and, maybe get rid of or at least significantly curtail its nuclear program. And these attacks by Israel came on day 61. I have that right, don't I, Trey?
John, you're exactly right. And these strikes that the Israelis launched against Iran came just days before 6 rounds of nuclear talks were set to take place in Oman. You know, President Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, was channeling those messages back and forth, trying to get an agreement. President Trump has said from the very beginning that he actually sees a prosperous future for Iran, real opportunity for the Iranian people, but that they have to make a deal. And he laid out that 60-day time frame. And just after that time frame is when these Israeli strikes started. And so, again, we hear from American officials, we still hear from President Trump about this conflict and about the possibility of diplomacy prevailing. And he's made clear he still wants a deal. And the question is how far Iran is willing to go, how many senior officials they're willing to lose, how much of their nuclear and missile program they're willing to have destroyed before they come back to the table. John.
Trey Yingst doing a great job reporting live from Tel Aviv at a very tense time in that part of the world as the missiles continue to rain down, apparently on the port city of Haifa in northern Israel. Trey and our team there will continue to keep an eye on the situation. We will update you as best we can. Well, it is now hour 12 in the manhunt for the guy accused of killing a top Minnesota state lawmaker and her husband, as well as wounding another lawmaker and his wife. We will talk with a former ATF agent who worked in Minnesota about what's going on there. That's next.
The grind catches up with everyone, even me. That's why I trust Cunol Ultra High Absorption Turmeric to support my joint health. It's the #1 doctor-recommended form of turmeric that helps you keep doing the things you love at every age. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Picture this. You get a warning that your tires are low on air.
Tire pressure low, and I hate it.
This is the Bullseye Pro. What do you think of an air compressor in the palm of your hand?
Now, this is light.
Easy to read, it lights up.
I'm impressed that it's this small and it can work in such a big truck.
It's convenient, it's lightweight. I can keep this in my glove compartment.
This is the Bullseye Pro Inflator. It's your anytime, anywhere inflation station. With its rechargeable lithium-ion battery, Bullseye Pro puts the power of a full-size air compressor in the palm of your hand.
You mean this can actually do my tires and I don't have to go to that old pump thing?
You do not.
Seriously?
This will do it.
If you could get 4 tires, that's awesome. This little thing's strong enough to put air in these low-profile tires.
All 4 of them if you'd like.
No kidding. I want to put it about 42. That's my highway travel PSI.
Okay, 42. We'll pop it on there. Trigger starts it. And just set it down. And you don't have to babysit it. That will automatically shut off when it gets to the PSI.
Perfect, I don't have to stand out here and wait.
You don't really know you need it until you need it.
Geez, that was so easy.
35 exactly.
35.
Right on target here.
Now, since we first started selling the Bullseye Pro, people everywhere have been using it to keep the things they rely on perfectly inflated. It's the smarter, faster way to fill anything with air.
Oh, that was easy. It's amazing. It's really handy.
You shut it and forget it.
I can't believe I can do this on my own.
Call or go online now and get the complete Bullseye Pro inflation system. All for the factory direct price of just $79.99. Plus, we'll ship your entire order free. That's right, free shipping. But to really inflate this offer, we'll give you a 50% discount on a second one. Call or go online to order now.
To order, call 1-800-352-4297 or go to getbullseyepro.com. So call 1-800-352-4297 or order online at getbullseyepro.com. Order now.
Mod & Bow makes teas that feel elevated, so you're never
beautiful human being. I want you to know that. I want you to know that because I also want you to, you may need to drive, and whether you're an immigrant or not, story where a movement lost a valiant leader.
You know, murder her. And
that Martin Luther King, when he lost his life, he was standing with sanitation workers in Memphis, Tennessee. April 4th, 1968, he was standing with workers who were treated so badly that they needed to lift up a sign that said, "I am a man." That's how poorly they were treated. Racism, discrimination, and hate against them in their job as sanitation workers in Memphis, and Martin Luther King stood with them. And when he lost his life, the people in that march, they knew one thing. The people in that strike, they knew one thing. They knew that they could not stop striking. They knew they could not stop marching. They knew they could not stop demanding justice, because to do less would be to ignore the memory of these great martyrs who have gave everything so we could have a better society. We owe it to them. We have to do it. We must be there on behalf of the people of this country in this hour, when a dictator who wants to be a king is trying to run over the rights of the people. We must be there. We must stand up. We must be strong. We cannot waver. We will not be intimidated. We are not scared of his jail. We are not scared of anything about this guy. We are not afraid, and we will not let fear rule the day. We will not let him weaponize fear against us. And I'm telling you now that he had his goons arrest a senator when he was just trying to ask a question. Senator Padilla, wrongfully treated. He had his other goons prosecute and charge Congresswoman McIver in New Jersey, had him arrest the mayor of New Jersey, threatened to arrest the governor of California and the mayor of Los Angeles. This is the behavior of a dictator. And the only question is, what are we going to do about it? We are past the point, friends. We are past the point when we need to convince people that this guy is a dictator. Nobody who studies dictators, nobody who's lived under a dictator would confuse him as anything but a fellow dictator. And if you're wondering about it, anytime he wants to go abroad, where does he go? To the dictators. He goes to the dictators abroad. He's actually jealous of the leaders over there in places like Saudi Arabia, because when they say jump, everybody has to say how high. He wants it to be like that here. No way. No way. No kings. No kings. No kings. We will not have no king. No king. And I want to tell you this. Every bad thing that he's trying to do, he's trying to take away birthright citizenship. He's trying to abolish the Department of Education. He's trying to get rid of USAID to help people in Minnesota and abroad. He's trying to get rid of science grants that help fuel our economy and find new cures. He's trying to persecute the trans community. But I'm going to tell you, friends, there is a way to do these things if you introduce a bill in Congress, if you follow the law about changing the Constitution, if you go through the regular order and the procedures. But he doesn't want to go through that. He just wants to say, here's another executive order, and just rule the country by proclamation. And that is an act of a king. So we sue him in court. And me and my fellow attorney generals have sued him 27 times. And I have a confession to make. I got to tell you the truth. Yeah, we're good lawyers and we're proud of the work that we do, but friends, we're not winning just because we're good lawyers. We're winning because every single thing he does is so illegal and unconstitutional. It's illegal and unconstitutional. How dare he call the Marines on American citizens protesting their government? Now, let me tell you how truly
First of all, John Hoffman and his wife Yvette were shot first. Now, they are both apparently expected to be reasonably okay. They're expected to survive, at least. And out of an abundance of
Tehran's nuclear capabilities and
to the home of another nearby legislator, that being Melissa Hortman, the former Speaker of the Minnesota House. And that is where they encountered the gunman. Didn't know that shots had already been fired, but that's where they encountered this gunman. He exchanged shots with police, and although he apparently was not hit, he was able to somehow get away. Now, the fact that they have video or pictures of him this morning walking around in his cowboy hat suggests that he did get very much away from that neighborhood. And to me, that's absolutely astounding. But he either had help, he had another car parked nearby, or he just had a whole lot of luck.
Yeah, two things, John. I don't know if you've ever worked the night shift, but in law enforcement, there's not very many folks on duty. That's the least staff time usually of law enforcement. And so it is super remarkable that the law enforcement officers there, knowing they didn't probably have that many resources, acted that quickly and probably prevented him from going down the list to do more, for sure. As far as the second person, that's another aspect of the investigation. You don't know how he got to where he did. Certainly working under exigency, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and the federal authorities there with their cellular analysis survey team, their CAS team, those folks are some of the unsung heroes. Not to talk about techniques too much, but there's some of the unsung heroes in law enforcement when it comes to putting phones in hands of folks. We don't want to get too far into it, but those folks in the public are going to make the difference in this and determining where this person is.
Well, they have done a great job so far in letting us know, what he is up to, what he looks like, maybe his movements. Let's hope they catch him in the next couple of hours. Retired FBI Supervisory Special Agent Jason Pack. Jason, thanks for sharing your expertise. In Minnesota, elected officials, as well as those across the country, are sharing messages of shock and grief after the shootings of those two Minnesota lawmakers. Connor Hansen live with more on that for us. Connor.
Yeah, John, lawmakers in Minnesota are condemning the violence and remembering their colleague who was murdered. Police are still searching for that suspect, as you mentioned, allegedly writing a manifesto with other politicians on a list. Authorities say the man was impersonating a police officer. They believe he also shot Minnesota State Senator John Hoffman and his wife in Champlin, Minnesota. That suspect exchanged gunfire with police and is on the loose. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz called the shootings an act of targeted violence while remembering Hortman.
She was a formidable public servant, a fixture and a giant in Minnesota. She woke up every day determined to make this state a better place.
Entire Minnesota congressional delegation released a joint statement saying in part, quote, "Today we speak with one voice to express our outrage, grief, and condemnation of this horrible attack on public servants. There is no place in our democracy for politically motivated violence." Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has called on the Capitol Police to provide extra security for Minnesota Senators Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith. Other lawmakers say threats have become an unfortunate part of the job.
complex. There may be people in Tehran who are thinking the following. As a desperate sort of Hail Mary move, we'll attack an American base or an American destroyer and get the United States to respond. Because the Trump administration has said, and Secretary Rubio said in his first announcement, that if Iran fires at any American assets in the Middle East, the United States will respond very robustly. Now, why would Iran want to invite an American military response? It's already fighting off Israel. The answer is this. The Iranians are watching very carefully the internal political situation in Washington, particularly divisions within the Republican Party. And looking at that isolationist MAGA part of the Republican Party that doesn't want to get involved in another Middle Eastern war and is already putting pressure on the president. So if the United States is perceived to be getting dragged into this war, there's going to be actually more pressure on the president. And then the hope of the Iranians would be that the president would then pressure the Israelis to stop the war. I know that's kind of convoluted, but welcome to the Middle East.
All right. Ambassador Michael Oren, listen, we really appreciate it. Please take care of yourself tonight.
Thank you very much. Good night.
We continue to follow breaking news right now. This breaking news back home here in the U.S. out of Minnesota, where a major manhunt is underway for the person suspected of shooting 2 lawmakers and their spouses. We've got the latest breaking details from that case. You're in the CNN Newsroom. We'll be right back.
My Happy Place, Sunday.
Non-surgical treatment isn't offered.
I'll get a second opinion. Let's go.
Take charge of your treatment. If you can't lay your hand flat, visit findahandspecialist.com to get started.
I have type 2 diabetes, but I manage it well. It's a little pill with a big story to tell. I take once daily, Jardiance, at each day start. As time went on, it was easy to see I'm lowering my A1C.
And for adults with type 2 diabetes and known heart disease, Jardiance can lower the risk of cardiovascular death too.
Serious side effects include increased ketones in blood or urine, which can be fatal. Stop Jardiance and call your doctor right away if you have nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, trouble breathing, or increased ketones. Jardiance may cause dehydration that can suddenly worsen kidney function and make you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or weak upon standing. Genital yeast infections in men and women, urinary tract infections, low blood sugar, or a rare life-threatening bacterial infection between and around the anus and genital.
Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst is live in Tel Aviv. He has more for us. Trey.
Yeah, John, we're just starting to gather some initial information following that large-scale Iranian ballistic missile attack that focused on the northern port city of Haifa. According to the local fire department, there are preliminary reports of a few impact locations with some injuries and the possibility of people who are stuck amid rubble. Again, these are preliminary reports coming from medics and first responders on the scene in northern Israel. We do expect to get more information in the hour ahead. Now, Israel's Home Front Command is telling civilians they no longer need to stay in bomb shelters. This fifth wave of attacks does appear to be over, at least at the moment. But as the state of emergency continues in Israel, that can change very quickly. Those alerts go out to phones, giving people a brief heads up before they have to head underground or into shelters here and across this country. I also want to touch on some reports that we're getting out of Yemen. It appears that there was an Israeli airstrike tonight that may have taken out the Houthi military chief of staff. Mohammed al-Ghamari, and that's according to Israeli officials in local media. The results of that strike are unknown, but he does appear to be the target of some airstrikes that took place in the last hour in Yemen. Remember, the Houthis have been targeting Israel with ballistic missiles well before this conflict between Israel and Iran began, and they are considered a proxy of the Iranian regime. They are funded and receive some military supplies. All of this coming into focus here in the region as Israel looks toward the main threat right now, which remains the Iranian regime. And we do expect more Israeli strikes against that regime tonight, as Israeli officials say they're going to expand their series of strikes following more ballistic missile attacks into Israel. John?
Yeah, and it's widely believed that the Houthis received those ballistic missiles from Iran directly, correct, Trey?
Absolutely. Some of them, and at least the components for some of them, they have received from the Iranians, according to Israeli and American officials. CENTCOM previously released press statements showing weapons components that they had caught off the coast of Yemen, intercepted them before they actually made it ashore. And this just gives you a fraction of the information that we have about the Houthis. And when we think about the proxy forces across the region, it's very important to discuss amid the backdrop of what's happening right now, these ongoing ballistic missile attacks. Every source that we've talked to has emphasized this point since this conflict erupted between Israel and Iran directly. And they've said that previously, when you think about before October 7th, the big fear in Israel was that if there was ever a direct war between Israel and Iran, that Iran would use its proxies in the region, like the Houthis in Yemen or Iran-backed Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. But as the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza developed, it gave the Israelis the opportunity to strike both Yemen, Lebanon, and Gaza and severely weaken these proxies. And it reduced the threat that previously included thousands of precision-guided missiles by 90%, according to some analysts in the region. And so it really changes the reality of the situation for the Israelis as they try to fight back against Iran.
And as
John?
you point out, the Israelis say they have more targets and they are attacking them even as we speak. Trey Yingst, live from Tel Aviv. Trey, thank you. Marines and the National Guard still on the ground in Los Angeles, where a curfew remains in effect. Hundreds have been arrested.
They're not making this up. They're trying to make everyone safer.
Now, there have been some peaceful protests, including the one I'm at right now. Things are calm, much different from last weekend, and law enforcement is out in full force today to try and keep them that way. They say they're aware of 40 different events here in LA County regarding the No King's Day protests, and roughly 200 of these protests statewide. Meantime, Democrats continue to heavily criticize President Trump for deploying 4,000 National Guardsmen and 700 Marines to the LA area. They're here to protect federal property and federal personnel during the anti-ICE protests.
Christina Coleman is reporting live from Los Angeles, where that parade, that protest, I guess you could say, is underway. Christina, thank you. And we'll be right back.
Progressive makes it easy to get a quick commercial auto quote online, so you can get back to all your other to-dos.
Didn't I say trim?
This is better.
See if you can save money at progressivecommercial.com.
My sister's kid. You guys unpack your room yet?
A lot of Americans think they'll never afford a home. Instead of lowering expectations, we've lowered down payments, helping more renters become owners. 1% down payments with One Plus from Rocket Mortgage. Get started at rocket.com.
Safe like repair, safe like replace.
Sadly, windshield chips can turn into windshield cracks. But at least you can go to safelight.com and schedule a fix in minutes.
Sweet.
SafeLight can come to you for free. And our highly trained techs can replace your windshield right at your home.
With flexible payment options, get it fixed now and pay later, only at safelight.com.
Safe like repair, safe like replace.
The way that I approach work post-fatherhood has really been trying to understand the generation that we're building devices for. Here in the Comcast family, we're building an integrated in-home Wi-Fi solution for millions of families like my own. In the average household, there are dozens of connected devices. Connectivity is a big part of my boys' lives. It brings people together in meaningful ways.
My blood sugar is borderline. I can worry about it, or I can do something about it. New Garlic Healthy Blood Sugar Formula works safely and naturally with a custom blend of garlic, vitamins, and minerals. And it's odor-free. I'm taking charge with Garlic.
The Big Blue breakup? Co-hosts of the Rootless podcast discuss the state of the Democratic Party. Plus, Billy Bush on why California is always in crisis. Sunday on One Nation.
Look for an ATM from our bank, or we'll have to pay a small fortune in fees.
BMO has more fee-free ATMs than the two largest U.S. banks combined.
Wow, saving money and more convenient.
Can I play a game on your tablet?
Sorry, no games. But we do have financial tools.
Financial tools?
What I love most about Clear Choice, they made me feel so comfortable. I'm beautiful now.
We need to make a song for AP, innit?
I've wanted to work with you for such a long time.
I can't help it if I'm popping, see them watch like it's outrageous how this flavor got them shook like.
Hold up. Never touch a down power line.
Four days ago that he was going to do this. We were out here on a family vacation, and he said, oh yeah, I'm flying over for the president's birthday. So we decided to keep our vacation and stay an extra day in D.C.
That's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Where's he going to be flying from?
He's flying out of Langley, and he'll be flying right over the White House.
Is this good or move it? So, John, the parade kicks off at about 6:30 this evening. There are showers in the forecast, but those aren't going to arrive until about 8 o'clock tonight, John.
Well, it is great. Looking forward to it. Lucas Tomlinson. Lucas, thank you. That's how Fox reports on this Saturday, June 14th of 2025. I'm John Scott. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow.
At Lumber Liquidators, we have great prices on flooring, but more
This is all leading up to the big celebration there in Washington, D.C. for the 250th anniversary of the Army. So we'll continue to keep you covered here on Live Now as these celebrations kick off. In the meantime, though, we've been covering our other breaking news story, this one out of Minnesota, dealing with the death of the state representative, Melissa Hortman. Her husband shot and killed there earlier today. That manhunt is still active and underway. In the meantime, we just heard from some of those officials there in Minnesota giving an update with details. Let's listen in.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bob Jacobson. I am the Commissioner of Public Safety, and it's my honor to serve in that position. We're here today to give some updates on the current investigation. First off, I would like to thank the law enforcement agencies and the public out there who are being vigilant, our law enforcement partners who are watching out for others in our community, the understanding and patience of the public as we work to find this individual and bring that person to justice. We know that it's been a difficult day for not only those who have worked with those legislators, but it's also a difficult day for those in the state of Minnesota who are working through this terrible tragedy. Today we have a few speakers who are going to, again, give some updates, and we will be available to answer some questions once all the speakers have had that opportunity to say a few words. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Drew Evans of the BCA.
Thanks, Commissioner. And today we are asking for the public's help at this point in time in locating Vance Luther Bolter, who is a 57-year-old white male who's 6 feet 1 inch tall, 220 pounds with brown hair and brown eyes. I know this name has been reported in the media so far, and we are confirming he's a person of interest that we are looking to locate in relation to this. At this time, we would ask the public, if you do locate him or see him, to call 911. Do not approach him. You should consider him armed and dangerous, and you should call 911 immediately with the information. He was seen last this morning wearing light-colored cowboy hat that you can see up here in the clothing there, with dark-colored long-sleeve collared shirt or coat, light pants, and carrying a dark bag. If you have any tips about the whereabouts or any information that would be helpful, you can call local police department, or you can call our BCA tip line at 877-996-6222, or email us at bca.tips@state.mn.us. We still don't know if additional people are involved, but this individual is the one that we're looking as a person of interest right now, but there may be other people with him, and we would like to speak to anybody that may have had contact with him at any point in time. So please connect with us, even if this has been some time ago today, so that we can follow up and continue to work together to keep our communities safe. And we, as the Commissioner noted, we'll take some questions at the end. But again, we are seeking the assistance of the public in locating him. I want to continue to say, as you see, there's hundreds of law enforcement officers working on this right now for the partners that you see up here today, as well from Champlin, Brooklyn Park, the State Patrol, Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, FBI, ATF, just a myriad of partners working to try to locate this individual. And with that, I will turn it over to the mayor, and we'll answer questions at the end.
Spectators showing up. People are piling in as we speak. Have For a couple of hours. Take a look at this. There are going to be period costumes. There are going to be horse-drawn covered wagons at the end. We're expecting a fireworks show.
As officials just recently wrapped up this news conference, and as you pointed out,
6,000 soldiers will march in the procession, 128 Army tanks, armored personnel carriers, artillery, helos, all of this processed before the president, who will be sitting at a stand just steps away from here with 62 aircraft flying overhead. The Secretary of Defense was on our air earlier today. He said all of this is going to be great for Army recruitment. Listen.
Imagine the effect on the American people seeing the hardware and the men and women and the parades of who we are and how we defend freedom. We believe that'll motivate. We believe that supports recruitment. This is a full-on military parade, U.S. Army on demonstration through the years. You're in for something special.
The primary segments of this parade are going to highlight wars in which U.S. Army soldiers served proudly and en masse: Revolutionary and Civil Wars, the Spanish-American War, both world wars, of course, Korea and Vietnam, and then the Gulf War through today's fighting force. After the parade wraps, hoping President Trump's going to still address the nation, where he'll be joined by the First Lady, and then, as I mentioned earlier, a fireworks display to close it all out. The weather is out here, the big unknown factor. It is scorching hot, feels like 96 degrees out here when you're not in the sun. Following some storm clouds overhead, possibility of thunder and lightning a bit later from now, guys. So if you're watching, whether you're at home, whether you're out here with us, you know, be a little flexible. Things might get moved around, we're being told. Back to you guys.
And Jillian, you know, when you're preparing for an event like this, there's so much excitement. What is the zeitgeist like on the ground? What are people saying?
I think people are super excited to be here. Anyone who is here had to do a mile trek to get in through security. So it's not easy to get here, to be this close as we are to the actual parade. It's going to be right behind me here, up and down Constitution Avenue. We also interviewed two Army infantrymen earlier, sergeants, who told us that among troops, the atmosphere is jubilant. They are very excited, very honored to be part of this, obviously a historical parade.
Absolutely. Jillian Turner, thank you so much for that. Now let's head over to Lucas Tomlinson for a look at some of the crowds and probably talking to some people. Lucas.
Well, you bet, Jackie. Good afternoon from the National Mall. People are filing in here, thousands, in fact, as you can see behind me in front of the stage where the President of the United States will be celebrating the U.S. Army's 250th birthday. Security is tight here. There are snipers on the roof. The bag search coming in here is very thorough, more thorough than the airport, very serious. But people are excited. People we've talked to. In fact, we spoke to the parents of one of the Air Force pilots who's going to be flying over the White House in just about a few hours in a fifth-generation fighter jet, an F-22 Raptor, out of Langley to be exact. We also spoke to a soldier earlier who said he's really excited and honored to participate in this parade.
It's an honor to be out here doing a 100% once-in-a-lifetime experience that we're going to get to talk about for years to come. Just being out there in general, getting to take our vehicles down the road, drive by the president, everything about it is just, it's going to be awesome.
So as we heard earlier, there's going to be a lot of military hardware rolling down Constitution Avenue. And Jackie, like anyone who's ever thrown a party before, you just don't want to cause too much damage. We're hoping there'll be no damage tonight, according to the Army. These tanks, of course, these M1 Abrams tanks weigh about 70 tons. Your typical car only weighs about 1 ton. So we're hoping that all goes smoothly. The price tag on this parade this evening coming in about $45 million. Now, unlike the people here and the President of the United States, not everybody is so excited about this parade. Here's Governor Tim Walz earlier. So the parade kicks off at about 6:30 this evening. It's going to be starting by the Lincoln Memorial on Constitution Avenue. It's going to roll by to the east on Constitution Avenue in front of the White House. We're going to have fireworks. The president's going to speak at about 8:30 this evening. Of course, rain is in the forecast, about 99% chance of rain. But as you ladies know, and Griff, the Army's an all-weather service, so they're going to be marching rain or shine.
Hey, Lucas, listen,
Forget Waltz's soundbite. We already heard that. Let me ask you this, because you have a military background. I obviously came to this network 25 years ago to do military history and have had the honor of serving or covering the men and women serving overseas. But you know, this administration has made a point. They want to reinvigorize patriotism in America. And you've been out there all day doing great reporting. When you've seen these young people, maybe even high school men and women walking around, seeing the Abrams tank, seeing the Bradley fighting vehicles, getting up close to it, what's that been like? How are they sort of reacting to all of this?
Well, Griff, yesterday on the mall, we had Apache gunships with a 30mm cannon. We had Black Hawk helicopters. You had some old Army Cobras on the mall, vintage Vietnam War era Hueys as well. People have come out for Army Challenge. So certainly, you know, the Army hit their recruiting goal months ahead of time this year. There's no doubt. I'm sure some more people will be signing up. We heard from the Defense Secretary earlier saying he wanted to join the military after attending a parade. So there's no question some of the people behind me, especially those young people you spoke about and we've seen out here, probably be pretty motivated to join the military after seeing something like tonight, especially if the rain holds and we get some of those cool flyovers. Or they can ride in tanks too, armored personnel carriers, or be a red leg artilleryman. That works too.
Good stuff.
Lucas Tomlinson, thank you so much. Great to see you.
Thank you.
All right, so let's get right into our discussion because there's a lot to talk about here, and it really is exciting. I think they set us up perfectly. Mark, I'll start with you. An event like this in Washington to celebrate this anniversary, and yet there are a lot of critics out there.
Yeah.
A lot are saying that the president is trying to make this somehow about himself because today is his birthday. Your thoughts on the left always will take something and just find whatever they can to spin it into a negative
Well, they're
place.
making it about him. He's not making it about
No.
him. And look, this is reviving a great American tradition. I went back and looked at the history of military parades. Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and James Madison all had military parades in Washington to celebrate the independence. We had a grand review of armies in 1865 to celebrate our victory in the Union in the Civil War. There were victory parades for World War I and World War II, and then they sort of stopped during the Cold War, and we sort of ignored the veterans of Korea and we ignored the veterans of Vietnam, and they weren't welcome with the parades that they expected because we had always honored veterans coming back from war with parades. And then George H.W. Bush started it up again at the end of the Persian Gulf War, and then we've had 30 years. Well, we haven't had one. So Donald Trump is bringing back a great American tradition of honoring the men and women of our armed forces who stand on the front lines protecting us.
And this is something that he has prioritized, and Secretary Hegseth has also. Miranda, recruitment numbers have not only been met, but they've been exceeded.
I mean, the morale just spiked as soon as Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth took over, and as it should be. This is just the kickoff of a whole year of celebrations of America's 250th birthday, and it's going to boost morale, not just in the armed services, but right across America. And America has the mightiest military in the world. Why not showcase it? And today was going to happen under Joe Biden. That was already organised, and yet Joe Biden it was going to be embarrassing. It was going to be a couple of tanks, a couple of trucks. Of course, Donald Trump comes in and says it's going to be bigger than Ben-Hur, and it is going to be absolutely amazing. And I think, you know, morale in the military is going to soar.
Yeah. And of course, today's parade is also a show of force to the rest of the world as the war in the Middle East is escalating. Iran just launched a 5th missile attack against Israel moments ago. The rogue nation has been bombarding Israel with missile and drone strikes since Friday. But the country continues to push back against Iran. The IDF has launched airstrikes on more than 150 targets inside Iran, including nuclear facilities and air defense sites. Now the rogue nation is threatening to target U.S. military bases in the Middle East for backing Israel in this fight. But with today's military parade, we are reminding the rest of the axis of evil that America is the world's only superpower. As of last year, there were nearly 1.5 million U.S. active military personnel, and the numbers should go up after encouraging recruitment numbers so far this year. While the U.S. also has the world's second largest nuclear arsenals. So, Griff, I want to come to you on this because I do think this sends a very strong message at a time where there's a lot of chaos around the world.
Well, exactly. And let's tie a few things together because Miranda was talking about the morale is boosting, right? Those young men and women in the Army today will face our enemies, and they will be charged with defeating them and never quitting. And at a time that's so dangerous, nothing could be more important. And I think that, this display will reassure those that stand to actually face these enemies like Iran to defend Israel or elsewhere in the world. It tells them that we back you. We want to appreciate you. And, the left doesn't do a good job of appreciating our military. And this is a bad time for that because we have so many threats around the globe. And so hopefully there will be some takeaway from the parade today that not only sends the message to our enemies that don't mess with us, but also reassurance to our men and women in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines that will have to ultimately defend our freedoms. What freedoms are those? The freedoms that the protesters have to go stand with these signs saying no kings. They should never forget that the blood and sacrifice of those men and women that flew in these helicopters today, that rolled in these tanks, that they have that sacred privilege and right to do so.
Yeah, and it's hard for me not to, Mark, think about Joe Biden, his 4 years in office, and the geopolitical turmoil that we now face as a result of many of the decisions that he made. And so I think about what's happening with Iran specifically, but I also see China and Russia, this axis that's aligned together, new enemies coming together in ways that they never have before. And so you think about the message President Trump is trying to send, and I think the message is, Joe Biden's not in office anymore. Somebody new is in the White House, and we are not going to stand for it.
So when Donald Trump left office 4 years ago, the world was at peace, and he inherited a world on fire. And he is in the process of trying to deal with that mess. There are going to be 84 aircraft flying over the National Mall. There's also dozens of B-2 bombers stationed in Diego Garcia right now, and there's military there. We have aircraft carriers stationed in the region, and Iran is watching this, and they ought to be very cautious because Donald Trump told them in his last term, he said, if you harm a single American or one of your proxies harm a single American, we're not going to just hold the proxy responsible, we're going to hold Iran responsible. So now they have a choice to make whether they retaliate against us for Israel's attack. And it would be, watch this parade. I say to the Ayatollah, watch this parade, because you don't want this coming down on you.
Oh, I think they definitely will be watching. And Mark, you bring up a great point. Miranda, I want you to respond to it because it's this notion that potentially if Iran wants to escalate this, they do go after U.S. assets, and that changes the ball game dramatically.
And that's why this parade could not have been better timed by Providence. I mean, the fact that it is Flag Day, the fact that it is Donald Trump's birthday, and the fact that it occurs the day after this Israel-Iran war has erupted, I think, there's a reason for it, and it is to show our adversaries around the world that, you don't mess with the United States military if you have got any brains at all. It's a real deterrent. And I would just say there was another parade recently with American military equipment, and that was in Kabul, and that was the Taliban, and that was Joe Biden's legacy. So
remember that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
So under Joe Biden, that 4 years, he diminished our fighting capacity and our deterrent value so badly. Good on Donald Trump for so quickly remedying the situation.
All right. Well, we have a lot more on deck coming up on the big weekend show. Be All You Can Be. Tonight's celebration includes a U.S. Army reenlistment ceremony. And we'll be speaking to some of those brave men and women fighting for our freedom. But first, a Fox News alert. The left is trying to rein on
to sneak in a quick break. On the other side, there is news in the search for the suspect in the shooting of 2 Democratic lawmakers in Minnesota. A new reward has been announced. We'll tell you about that next.
Work. Play. Blink. Relief. Work. Play. Blink. Relief.
The only 3-in-1 extended relief formula for dry eyes.
Terms as Speaker of the House and then as Speaker Emerita in the Tide House, and she was very conscientious about, you know, the way she brought herself to the press when what we were thinking about, you know, as this special session negotiations were dragging on. Both she and Speaker of the House Dameth, they have, you know, they had every intention of making sure we were updated as well as we could be without, you know, interfering with the work that they had to do. And so they were very much, you know, kind of, I would say, not on our side so much, but knowing what the rigors of our job is and trying to make sure that we could do our job to the best of our abilities. And, you know, also wanting to know through us how the public was feeling about the whole situation. And, you know, that's always kind of how Melissa Hortman was. She was, you know, she was very good at, you know, communicating to us. I do remember kind of a humorous moment I think would be okay to share right now, because near the end of the regular session, she was just talking about how difficult it was to kind of keep everybody in line and get, you know, bills passed and get through this budget, and just, you know, they couldn't really get to the finish line on time, and why not? And it's a 67-67 House, but that wasn't like the extent of everything. And she's like, you know, we can't waterboard everybody. And then immediately it was like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't have said waterboard. Maybe I probably should have said something like, we can't give them all a colonoscopy. So, you know, she had a pretty good sense of humor as well, even with us in that professional capacity. And, you know, she's someone I've worked with since I started here at Fox 9, and you know, always was respectful towards us in the press corps. Probably had, I don't know, 100 conversations with her in 3 years. And, you know, it's somebody like I said, I don't have like friendships or relationships with these folks, but it was, you know, she's somebody that I very much had a collegial relationship with, and yeah, just from that aspect, I will miss her.
Yeah, Corin, well, thank you for that. And I think we've talked a little bit about that here this morning, too. Sometimes it's often to think, you know, you put the politicians, you don't always think of them as people, right. At any level. And at the end of the day, they are people. They go home to their families. They go to their spouses, and they are trying to do what they think is best for their constituents.
You know, and Corin said he didn't have a personal relationship with Ms. Hortman, but you know, at the same time, you become familiar with one another for sure, and the way you work, and there's a camaraderie there, just as, you know, identifying both as having a job to do. And so you could see that, you know, not only him, but Paul Bloom, you know, even media and, you know, others very broken up at this news. I believe we have a U.S. Representative Kelly Morrison on Zoom right now to interview with us and find out her reaction. Thank you, Representative, for being with us. Can you just kind of, you've, I'm sure, been following the developments throughout the day today, your thoughts and your reaction to what's happened here?
Well, you know, I caught a little bit of that last segment, and I think he captured Melissa so well. We're just grieving in Minnesota today. This is a huge loss for the state legislature and for our community. Melissa was the best of us in a lot of ways. She was just a tireless public servant, a lover of Minnesota, and passionate about making people's lives better in our state. And I and the rest of our community are
officials say it is just too early for them to want to talk about that.
A heinous act. Brooke Taylor, we'll check back in with you.
Comments take a stand and go out on the streets against Iran's regime. No indication yet that is happening, but gives perhaps a clue as to potentially what one of the goals of this campaign is, though we don't know exactly in concrete terms what the specific military objectives are. And so the expectation is that as long as those ballistic missiles keep on flying in both directions, people across this region will remain on high alert, Jessica. Yeah.
And Clarissa, I just want to clarify something. You said you're hearing of 14 injuries, not casualties. Is that correct?
That's correct. We had heard of 14 injuries, but one of those injuries is believed to be in critical condition. So we will be watching that closely and checking back with you.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we had the best information there. All right, Clarissa Ward, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Right now, several No Kings protests are underway across the country as millions of Americans are expected to turn out in protest of President Trump's administration. We are live from that scene.
To understand the world, you need the truth. That's why we follow the facts wherever they lead, no matter how far we have to go.
Okay, everyone, our mission is to provide complete balanced nutrition for strength and energy.
Want to throw out criminal migrants. They're protesting efforts to get rid of men and women's sports. They're protesting against DOJ and their efforts to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. And you know, now they're running their protests against this. This is not the path out of the wilderness if you're a Democrat.
Why are we seeing, if you had to guess, Miranda, why are we seeing such a strong turnout at these protests, a No Kings thing, which, by the way, I'm not sure there's not a little bit of irony in there because the first procession of military will be the Army in the Revolutionary War. But why do you think we're seeing this?
Well, I mean, look, I think as Mark said, the Democrats have nothing else. They don't have a leader. They don't have policies. Donald Trump's kicking goals. He's also very lucky. I mean, the economy's coming back. Working class wages that have risen to record levels. And I don't think the protest is doing that well. I mean, it's getting a lot of media, but in Florida, they had to cancel their No Kings protest out of lack of interest. And I think Donald Trump the other day, when he just laughed and made a joke out of the No Kings, said, I'm not a king. If I was a king, I wouldn't have such trouble. You know, he just made a mockery of the whole thing. In Canada, they have a No Kings protest, but because they have a king, they've had to call it the No Tyrants protest. So really, I think they're a joke and they have nothing else. Unfortunately, they're also resorting to violence. And in this suspect, in this terribly tragic shooting in Minnesota, he apparently had, the police have said, had No Kings brochures, flyers in his car. So I think they're flirting with danger.
Well, of course, Harry, I'll give you the last word, Jackie.
Yeah, I would just say that, you know, like little kids, when they don't have a plan or they don't know what to do, they start causing chaos and trying to disrupt and throw toys around and make a fuss. At the end of the day, this is desperation on the part of the Democrats because they don't know what they're doing. They still can't get over the fact that Donald Trump won this election. They still can't get over the fact that he won the
blue jean baby, born in the USA. Trailer park truck stop, faded little man.
We're about 30 minutes away from the start of this historic celebration honoring the Army's 250th anniversary. Over 6,000 soldiers will take part in tonight's event, wearing uniforms from every era of American military history. The parade will also showcase the Army's best weaponry, including Abrams tanks, Black Hawks, and dozens more aircraft. But the real reason we're here tonight is to honor the men and women of the Army. And right now, we're joined by 3 special Americans who are set to take the Army's oath of office. Sergeant First Class Jessica Woods and Specialist Andrew Hector are re-enlisting, while Nicholas Da Silva just signed up for the Army and heads to basic training Tuesday. Folks, thank you so much for joining us today. Jessica, tell me a little bit about your family and your history and why you've decided to re-enlist today.
So I come from Ohio, Northwest Ohio, and I'm dual military with my husband. We have a 2-year-old, and sorry.
No, go ahead. Tell us about your family and why you re-enlisted.
Okay, so the reason I'm re-enlisting today, actually I'm going indefinite, and that means I plan to retire from the Army. So
wow.
I'm 12 years in at this point, and I have about 8 or maybe more. My long-term goal is to be a sergeant major in the Army. So if that means I serve up to 22, 24, even 26 years, then that's what I'll do.
Jessica, thank you for your service. So inspiring out there. And I've got a question for Specialist Andrew Hector. Thank you for your service too to him. And what is it like for Specialist Hector to be out there today?
What is it like for you to be out here today?
Say again, sir?
What is it like for you to be out here today?
It's very inspiring to be out here. Seeing all 7,000 troops out here, it's very wonderful.
I'm going to go over to Nicholas, Jessica, if you don't mind. I want to ask what he thinks about Americans watching this, who have come to watch it live. How are they going to be inspired by everything that's happening?
How are Americans going to be inspired today by everything that's happening?
You know, I think this parade is really like a really strong display of unity and patriotism, and I really hope that every American watching this gets inspired by whether it is just watching, just seeing how great our military is, or even just the next generation of future soldiers coming in. I'm really excited for that.
Jessica, it's Miranda Devine here. I wanted to thank all 3 of you and also ask you, each one of you, what message do you have to America today?
So he has a really great story that I would like y'all to hear. He's wanted to be an Army Ranger since he was a young toddler, so yeah. I'll let him speak a little bit more on that.
So I think on this photo I was about 4 or 5 years old. As long as I can remember, I've always wanted to be a Ranger.
That kickoff celebration for the parade is happening in less than an hour. We'll be hearing from President Trump. We will be seeing fireworks tonight, and it will be a big extravaganza.
Finally, just the message to America.
On Live Now from Fox with much, much more, just some of the many vehicles we will be seeing in D.C. on Live Now.
Jessica, just one last quick question before we run out of time. Could you ask Specialist Hector he joined?
Specialist and
I joined the Army. My dad was in the Army. He was an artillery officer. Turns out I loved it, and I've chosen to re-enlist for another 3 years.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for your service, and for those of you who are in re-enlisting, thank you.
And as your business grows, it grows.
That's fair.
Progressive makes it easy to get a quick commercial auto quote online so you can get back to all your other to-dos. See if you can save money at progressivecommercial.com.
Life is always changing, and our Lovesac couch adapts to it all. Gathering around for game day one moment, reconfiguring for entertaining the next. And tomorrow, a new look entirely. Because Lovesac adapts to life, our life.
Giving you a look at some live shots from all over the country. Live feeds, including some of the massive protests that we are seeing across the country for the No Kings protest, protesting President Trump and his administration.
It will be a major conflict.
General Clark, we have to run here with the breaking news. I wanted to get your thoughts on the parade. I apologize for that. Of course, we'll have you back many times, as we always do. The news, such as it is on the parade, with the weather coming in, they moved it up. That's why we got to get going here. They're going to start it at the top of the hour. We thought it'd be 6:30 Eastern. Now it's 6 p.m. Eastern, okay? So that's when it's going to start here in Washington. We'll be back with more in a moment.
My moderate to severe Crohn's symptoms kept me out of the picture. Now I have Skyrizi.
I've got places to go and I'm feeling free. Control of my Crohn's means everything to me.
Mazzato cuts through ingredients like a laser and keeps their structure and integrity intact. The weight of the Mazzato knife's blade enhances its precision, while its well-balanced design ensures a comfortable grip. This balance of heft and comfort makes every cut smooth and controlled, ensuring a consistent outcome every time you step into the kitchen. Choosing Mazzato means investing in a masterpiece of craftsmanship. A knife that's more than a tool. It's a legacy for the future. Don't miss our sharpest deal yet. Mazzato is now available at an amazing 70% discount. We've slashed prices so you can start slicing with expert precision. Experience the luxury of quality craftsmanship at an affordable price. It's also the perfect gift for those who appreciate durability, rugged quality, and timeless design. Experience the confidence and joy of cooking with a tool celebrated across cultures. Call the number on the screen or go online to place an order and receive a 70% discount on Mazzotto. Get it for just $29.95 instead of the original $99.83. So, what are you waiting for? Take this chance to own a piece of history, blending timeless craftsmanship with modern precision. Make Mazzotto the highlight of your kitchen, where every cut tells a story.
How many subscriptions do you have?
Probably just Netflix and Spotify.
All right, it's saying you have 13 subscriptions, which is costing you around $270 a month.
What?
You can cancel the ones you don't want right through the app, and it can even help you try and get a refund.
Baby back ribs. Where does it go? Nobody knows. Okay.
To watch this parade take place. It will be quite the sight to see, celebrating the Army's 250th birthday, as well as not only Flag Day, but you have President Trump's birthday, all
make his way to make the short drive over to where you're starting to head to what is promising to be such an important patriotic parade for all Americans.
And we will have that coverage for you here on Live Now from Fox. And while we do wait for that to get going,
delivers remarks at the Army 250th celebration. He's throwing on his own birthday, and we want to get in on the fun too. So it's game time. We have all made bingo cards with what we think Trump will say, and we've put that up on the board there. You can see. Look, I'll go first here with what I think he's going to. The phrases. These are phrases that we anticipate may come out of the president's mouth at his speech. I think it will be peace through strength. He likes that one a lot. He'll mention golden age. Yes. He likes to do that quite a lot. He will say that we have the greatest fighting force. He will say defeat, something to the lines of defeat our enemies. And I think he'll use the phrase American heroes, and he'd be justified and correct in doing that as he talks about the men and women that have served in those vintage vehicles.
All right, it's my turn. I think he's going to talk about rebuilding the military, because that's been a huge priority for him, and also for the Secretary of Defense, and also eradicating some of the undertones that have infiltrated the military that he feels don't belong there. I think he will talk about survival of our nation, and we need the military to be able to survive. I think he will mention the Panama Canal and ceasefires. And lastly, I think he'll talk about making America strong again, because that really embraces all of this in a huge umbrella, and that's why he's out there today.
Miranda?
Well, mine are never be defeated, founding fathers, illegal alien invasion, and greatest country on earth.
Well, I'm the only presidential speechwriter here, so if I lose, then it's really embarrassing.
That's right.
So I think he's going to mention the big, beautiful Golden Dome.
Yes.
I think we'll get that in there. I think he's going to talk about the military base names. He just came back from Fort Bragg, which they've renamed to Fort Bragg, though for a World War II veteran. I think he's going to talk about getting rid of wokeness in the military.
Yes.
I think if this doesn't appear, then it's a big fail on all parts. Patriots. I think he's going to talk about the Patriots because these are the greatest patriots, and we're starting a great celebration of American patriotism at the 250th anniversary of our country. And I think he'll probably touch on the Iranian nuclear weapon and talk about what's happening with Israel and how we're backing Israel. So this is his first chance to give a speech where has a chance to talk about what's happening in the Middle East.
You know, Mark, it's so fascinating. I hadn't thought about it until you mentioned you were a very successful White House speechwriter. What goes into writing tonight's speech?
Yeah.
Like, what are they trying to hit, and how important is this speech?
I think, first of all, he's done amazing speeches like this. I mean, you remember the one he did in front of Mount Rushmore, which was just a remarkable speech in his first term. So he's really, really good at these kind of set speeches. And I think he's trying to, this is a kickoff, this is not just the 250th anniversary of the Army, this is a kickoff of the 250th celebration of our American independence, which is starting now because the Army was formed in 1775. Fought its first battle at Bunker Hill on Tuesday, 250th anniversary of that as an army. And we're going to be celebrating all the way through next year. So this is a kickoff of a year-long celebration of American patriotism.
Tough speech to write, but I bet we'll hear it, and we'll bring it to you here. Meanwhile, the Army 250 parade is just moments away. We'll bring you there to the parade live on the ground next.
This land is your land, and this land is my land. From the California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest.
So which would you recommend?
Do you like brown?
Yeah, some things are just better at home. With Empire's home floor.
No, it's wonderful that people are getting out there. I was out in my district earlier today. I did a town hall, and then right after the town hall, went to a protest in my congressional district. Peaceful people out there just fighting for their rights. You know, here in California, you know, we didn't ask for the National Guard. We didn't ask for the Marines. The president and his administration, you know, Ice Barbie was over here trying to say she's going to liberate the people here of California and Los Angeles.
standing in defense of not only the United States, but also to further freedom and prosperity for others around the world. At the same time, under the same U.S. Army banner here behind us, is a commander-in-chief who has openly in the last week suggested that he could potentially pardon the individuals that threatened to and put forward a kidnapping plan of the Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. This is also the same president commander-in-chief who, after those 100 U.S.
Luxury isn't just comfort, it's consciousness, it's craftsmanship, it's choosing better. Inspired by the beauty of our planet, we design for the dreamers. Every stitch, thoughtfully placed to elevate your sleep. Crafted for the way you rest. Made with the finest natural and organic materials. Sustainably sourced, meticulously crafted. Because true luxury isn't just how it feels, it's how it's made. Discover our full line of luxury mattresses at Avocado
From the frozen chosen to Fallujah, where I got to witness our soldiers and Marines fight. This is an important day, an important parade, and I can't wait to hear what the president has to say.
And Miranda, you were there this morning. It is very hot. You said it just feels like it wants to rain. They've moved the ceremonies up. Even if it does rain, I still think people are probably going to stand out there.
Oh, I think so. Look, you could tell already there were people everywhere. There was a real feeling, despite all the security and the heat, there was just a feeling of anticipation and excitement. And, you know, Donald Trump is just the consummate showman. With all the things he has on his plate, he still knows that it's important to boost the morale of the country and to show the military that the country is behind them. So I think that's what today is all about.
And he has been harnessing his talent in that regard, Mark, in this second term of his, but he's also let go of some of the things that irked people sometimes. So when you think he's addressing the country tonight, will he have that tone? Because people have actually praised him for this new tone.
Well, they're not trying to destroy him anymore. They're trying to stop his agenda, but they're not trying to destroy him. So he's a happy warrior. But we're an exceptional nation because we're the only nation in human history that was not built on blood and soil, but on an idea. The idea of human freedom, the principles in our Declaration of Independence, and these are the men and women who make those ideas possible. And so, what a great day to celebrate them and thank them for what they do for us.
Absolutely, it goes back to the priorities that we were talking about. What's important for our nation, and I think that's what the president is going to serve up tonight.
Mark's going to win the bingo thing.
Well, be sure to watch the Big Weekend Show's special coverage of the Army's 250th anniversary parade. It's live tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. We go over those bingo cards. And that does it for us.
Moments, the parade will begin, stretching from the Lincoln Memorial to the Washington Monument, a powerful display of pride, tradition, and American strength.
So here's a live look now where Army officials are expecting a crowd of over 200,000 Americans from all over the country, with 600,600 soldiers taking part, wearing uniforms that span every U.S. conflict since the Revolutionary War. It's a living timeline of our military's courage and their sacrifice. We'll also see more than 150 military vehicles and 50 helicopters in action, along with dramatic flyovers and displays of cutting-edge Army equipment. And in a moment, in real-time meaning, 250 soldiers and new recruits will be enlisted or re-enlisted by our president, Commander-in-Chief, President Donald J. Trump himself. The president will be joined by veterans, wounded warriors, active duty troops, and Gold Star families, and he will deliver remarks later this evening.
It promises to be a powerful tribute to the men and women who defend our freedom, past, present, and future. Stay with us. Our live coverage on Fox News begins now. Lucas Tomlinson is live on the ground on the National Mall, but first we start with Jillian Turner, who's at the corner of 17th Street and Constitution Avenue.
marching. We heard from Jillian earlier in your introduction. We're going to see soldiers in uniform, periods from the American Revolution to the Civil War, to both World Wars, the Korean War, Vietnam, the Gulf War. The last time a parade actually took place here in the nation's capital was at the end of the Gulf War, and also honor those warriors and soldiers during the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. In fact, many of the soldiers we've spoken to already are excited to be here. They're dining out in town during the week. They're enjoying themselves. They're honored to be here, and we spoke to one of them earlier. This is what he had to say.
It's an honor to be out here doing a 100% once-in-a-lifetime experience that we're going to get to talk about for years to come. Just being out there in general, getting to take our vehicles down the road, drive by the president, everything about it is just, it's going to be awesome.
So as you can see, guys, thousands have gathered behind me, and the parade is just about to kick off. So we're going to send it back to you, Lawrence and Emily. Enjoy the show.
That's right. It is.
Representing our joint forces, please welcome the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane. Joining us, the Secretary of the Army. Please welcome the Honorable Daniel P. Driscoll. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Secretary of Defense, the Honorable Pete Hegseth. Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, accompanied by the Second Lady of the United States, Usha Vance, and their 3 children. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, and First Lady Melania Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, to honor America, would you please rise for the singing of our national anthem?
Before we even had a country, we had an army.
They started as a small, unorganized group of shop owners and farmers, but they fought the most powerful army in the entire world to a standstill in Concord, Lexington, and Bunker Hill.
Then our Continental Congress chose George Washington as general of our Continental Army.
But it wasn't until 1 year later, on July 4th, 1776, that news arrived of the signing of our Declaration of Independence.
Now we had a new army and a new nation.
With little gunpowder, no shoes, bloody feet, few cannons, little training, and even less food.
Valley Forge started in December. They went into winter camp in December of 1777. Approximately 2,000 Americans died that winter of disease.
They lived through hell, but they never, ever gave up. Not this army, not this first American army.
Finally, Washington and his army arrived here at Yorktown, where they had General Cornwallis and his powerful British army trapped in this city against the sea.
All of the preparation that Washington has learned through the course of those 6.5 years meets its full force here at Yorktown, and he employs it brilliantly.
Sailing from the Caribbean, the French Navy arrived and took on the British fleet.
Washington decided to make his move. Our men began digging to get closer and closer to the fort, finally getting within rifle and cannon range. Naturally, George Washington chose to set off our first cannon shot.
The British had two small forts in front of the main fort. They were called Redoubts 9 and 10.
Then, on the moonless night of October 14th, the American and French forces attacked the redoubts. The hand-to-hand combat with bayonets, knives, and fists was bloody, to say the least. But within an hour, we were victorious.
And as the sun came up the next day, Cornwallis looked out and realized he was in serious trouble. So he prepared an all-out, desperate counterattack.
It didn't work, and the British were forced to surrender.
We were supposed to lose to the best army and the largest and most professional navy in the world.
But our young army had won the war and our freedom, the freedom we hold so dear. And 250 years later,
Ladies and gentlemen, our parade is officially underway. Up first, internationally renowned as one of the world's finest professional music organizations, the United States Army Band, Pershing Zone. They are the premier music organization of the U.S. Army, our nation's most senior service. Stationed at Joint Base Meyer-Henderson Hall, Virginia, it plays an important musical role in events of national and international significance. They were founded back in 1922 by Army Chief of Staff John J. Pershing. They're led today by Colonel Bruce R. Pulver and Drum Major Rob Moore. Today, Pershing Zone is playing a melody entitled The Army Goes Rolling Along. This was actually written in 1908 by the then Lieutenant Edmund Louis Snitz Gruber, which was a descendant of Franz Gruber, who composed Silent Night. It was originally written to be the 5th Artillery Regimental song titled The Caissons Go Rolling Along, and in 1956 the lyrics were revised by Harold Arberg as the official song of the U.S. Army, and then retitled The Army Goes Rolling Along. Pershing Zone carries on its century-old legacy, playing a march that brings pride to every soldier, the Army Song. The 3rd Infantry Regiment, the oldest active duty unit in the U.S. Army. Established back in 1784, the unit was dubbed the Old Guard by Major General Winfield Scott during a victory parade in Mexico City after the Mexican War. It is the U.S. Army's official ceremonial unit and presidential escort, conducting year-round tactical training to ensure the highest standards and utmost discipline of its soldiers. The unit routinely represents the U.S. Army and our nation in official ceremonies, major sporting events, and their own, the U.S. Army's own Twilight Tattoo. The Old Guard also maintains 24-hour vigil of the tomb of the unknown soldier, while also conducting funeral services honoring our fallen heroes in Arlington National Cemetery. The regiment's 50 campaign streamer stand is a testament to its long, faithful service to our nation. Ladies and gentlemen, the 3rd Infantry Regiment, the Old Guard. In 1775, the shot heard round the world at Lexington and Concord sparked a revolution, uniting 13 colonies and forging a continental army from farmers and frontiersmen. Against the odds, they turned the tide at Trenton and Saratoga, survived Valley Forge, and at Yorktown forced a British surrender, securing independence and giving birth to the United States of America. Before radios and field phones, sound was the signal. In the Continental Army, fifes and drums carried commands across the chaos of battle, telling soldiers when to advance, when to retreat, eat, even when to rest. That legacy actually lives on today with the U.S. Army Fife and Drum Corps, part of the 3rd Infantry Regiment known as the Old Guard. Founded back in 1960, they're the only unit of their kind in the armed forces. Performing in uniforms patterned after those worn by General Washington's musicians. Playing period instruments with patriotic precision, they bring history to life, sharing the sound and spirit of the Revolution through more than 500 performances each year, both at home and around the world, too. The Old Guard, Fife and Drum Corps, everybody. And now, from high above, ladies and gentlemen, celebrating 250 years, your United States Army parachute team, the Golden Knights. Descending at over 120 miles an hour, the Golden Knights are using flexible wing gliders to maintain their formation. They open their main canopy simultaneously and negotiate the softest possible landing. I'll tell you, they can't hear you, but they sure can see you. You can give them a great big wave, ladies and gentlemen. The Golden Knights, the finest parachuting team in the world. Fort Sumter in 1861, a nation divided. Over 4 brutal years, nearly 2 million soldiers fought to preserve the Union. Among them, 5 future presidents and the first recipients of a brand new military decoration, the Medal of Honor. With independence won, our nation's westward expansion began. The Army moved in step, guarding settlers as native scouts lit the way. Immigrants joined the cause, and the Buffalo Soldiers etched a legacy of grit and honor across the American frontier. As they march by, a soldier's uniform signals their duty, their role, and their readiness. And by the late 1850s, official regulations outlined distinct looks, shaping the Army's identity and function across the force. Soldiers were issued 2 coats. One, a short sack coat for work and battle, with brass buttons and colored trim that marked their rank. Well, by war's end, that rugged sack coat became the soldier's uniform of choice. As the war escalated, volunteer enlistment surged. Congress authorized support for a force of up to 500,000 new troops, answering the call to preserve the Union. As they march by, representing the Civil War era of our nation's history, is the 4th Infantry Division based out of Fort Carson, Colorado. From Port Cavazos, Texas, home of legends, the 1st Cavalry Division rides with pride. Born from the thunder of horse cavalry traditions of the Civil War, the 1st team forged its reputation on the front lines of history. They stormed Manila with the flying column, charged into Pyongyang as the first to breach the line and face the brutal crucible of Ia Drang, the first of 13 named campaigns in Vietnam where they proved their mettle. Today, that same warrior spirit lives on. You'll know the name, and you'll know them by their iconic cav hats, elite soldiers, and cutting-edge equipment. Tough, fit, fearless. The 1st Cavalry Division is a
250th anniversary of the U.S. Army. What an incredible birthday celebration to be a part of, Lawrence.
You feel the energy here. Everyone is so excited. When the president took the stage, you heard the people saying, USA, USA. There's so much patriotism here, celebrating our
we were the most secure, the most safe as a country that we have been. Obviously, we're in a very dangerous world as we see the events overseas and elsewhere happening. But I think our adversaries around the world know that President Trump means business and can back up what he says. Ultimately, though, he is a peacemaker, and he wants to see peace around the world, but peace through strength, right? And the United States Army and what you see out there today is that strength that backs up that peace.
And Chad, we're just going to listen a little bit. We're expecting a flyover in just a few minutes right here, but we're going to tune in just a little bit. We want our audience to see this as they march through. We're seeing different parts of history right now. Let's listen in together.
Was the M918 1918 French boot. It was designed to survive the brutal grind of trench warfare. And on their backs, the field pack, rations, ammo, first aid, and a gas mask. Everything a doughboy needed to fight and to win. Incidentally, the 42nd Infantry Division was deployed to heavy combat abroad and then deployed again in World War II, ultimately liberating the Dachau concentration camp. The 42nd responded to the terrorist attacks on 9/11. Later, with the war on terrorism, the rainbow stretched across the world again, deploying in Iraq and Afghanistan. Thundering into view, the pride of Fort Sill, the U.S. Army Artillery Half Section. This is literally powered by horsepower and heritage. This elite ceremonial unit honors the legacy of the Army's horse-drawn artillery. With precision, discipline, and 6 majestic horses pulling a vintage 1918 caisson, the half section keeps tradition alive and rolling strong. Representing the power, pride, and precision of America's field artillery. This is Fort Sill's finest, ladies and gentlemen. Special thanks to our sponsor, Form Energy. World War II, a global fight for freedom. In history's darkest hour, the United States Army was on the front lines. From the beaches of Normandy to the islands of the Pacific, the greatest generation faced down tyranny and turned the tide. From bombers to fighters to transports, U.S. Army aircraft started to thunder across the skies in World War II. And take a look up there, ladies and gentlemen. Flying overhead right now, they are fast, they are fierce, and famously used in the Doolittle raid over Tokyo. Leading up front, the mighty B-25 Mitchell. Up next, the Cadillac of the sky, the P-51 Mustang. From the sky, we're back down on the ground. In World War II, one vehicle led the charge, the legendary quarter-ton 4x4 Command Recon vehicle.
How great was that flyover? And it's still happening now again.
And especially, you know, the United States Air Force, as we know it, was a part of the United States Army until 1947. So that's why we're getting treated to these earlier aircraft. This is so exciting. A lot of people who thought this was maybe just about some vehicles. No. It's everything tonight.
And I feel like we're nerding out here because we're talking about all the different projects that we did in school, talking about all the history that is living and breathing. It just feels so good to have a commander-in-chief as well as the Secretary of Defense, a Vice President, Secretary of Army that appreciate the men and women. Both of us come from generations of military service in the Army, specifically my father, grandfather, both grandfathers, my grandmother, all in the Army. And I don't think they have seen a celebration like this either.
No, sir, and you're right. You know, adorning my childhood home along the hallways were all the medals from my family. Many in the U.S. Army, in the U.S. Army Air Corps before the Air Force, the Nursing Corps. My great-great-aunt deployed for a year and a half, a female. And my dad, Navy, and so much more Army. So you're so right that, like, the pride I feel and the gratitude I feel for a commander-in-chief now that is recognizing the storied history of the U.S. Army.
It's because it's bigger than us. It's about the country. All right, we'll be right back with more of the Army's 250th anniversary parade right here on Fox. Don't move.
Power outages can be unpredictable, inconvenient, and disruptive to your life.
Thursday marked 70 years since the end of the Korean War, and North Korea celebrated what it called Victory Day with a nighttime military parade.
In a global
Kim Jong-un attended the parade with high-ranking military officials, Russia's defense minister, and a member of the Chinese Communist Party. Portraits of former leaders, war veterans, and fireworks. What appears to be the country's intercontinental ballistic missile and an underwater nuclear attack drone. The Korean Armistice Agreement was signed on July 27, 1953, to end the Korean War.
Implement every design, and history proved him right. The 82nd Airborne Division. The unit is best known for their bravery on D-Day, when 12,000 parachute and glider troops destroyed German supply lines after fighting for 33 days straight. The 101st Airborne Division, based out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky, traces its lineage back to 1918 when
Russia's
established as the 101st Division. Known for their ability to rapidly deploy across the world, the unit has held a crucial role in operations since its inception. From parachuting behind enemy lines on D-Day to leading helicopter assaults in Vietnam, the 101st redefined modern warfare. In the 50s, the Screaming Eagles stood tall at home, protecting the Little Rock Nine during the fight for civil rights. In recent decades, they've been sent across the world with stints as far as the Middle East, where they took part in Operation Desert Storm and participated extensively in the war on terrorism in Iraq and Afghanistan. The Screaming Eagles continue to lead the way as tomorrow's division in today's Army. The iconic Sherman tank is here, ladies and gentlemen. It was the cornerstone of the U.S. Armed Forces, showing its military might in World War II. It became one of the most influential tank designs of the 20th century. The M4 tank was nicknamed the Sherman tank after Civil War General William Tecumseh Sherman. Actually, it was named by the British. With almost 50,000 produced during World War II, the Sherman tank was in active service until 1957. In World War II, the M16 half-track was a force to be reckoned with. It was a self-propelled anti-aircraft weapon with speed, firepower, and grit. Nicknamed the Meat Chopper, its quad 50 caliber mount could unleash 2,300 rounds a minute. Quite devastating. It served through Korea, Vietnam, and beyond, and remains in use in U.S. allies to this day. The M16 half-track brings the fight wherever it rolls.
Defense minister and a member of the Chinese Communist Party. Portraits of former leaders, war veterans, and fireworks. what appears to be the country's intercontinental ballistic missile and an underwater nuclear attack drone.
The Korean War, often referred to as the Forgotten War, began on June 25, 1950, with the North Korean Army's invasion of South Korea. A coalition of South Korea, the United States, and other United Nations members defeated the invasion and advanced into North Korea. The coalition fought and defeated
This agreement was signed on July 27, 1953, to end the Korean War.
Began shortly after that defeat in July of 1951 until the armistice was signed 2 years later in 1953. Combat consisted of small attacks, raids, and patrolling. During this war, the United States deployed approximately 6.8 million military forces to the Korean Peninsula.
돌기하는 이에 강력한 총대가 나아가고 있습니다.
Special thanks to our sponsor, Coinbase.
미국에 대해서 우리가 이만큼 실질적으로 성공하고 있는 시험 발사에 성공하고 있는 고체 연료 ICBM이다라는 걸 다시 한번 더 강조하기 위해서 화살 18형을 다시 한번 열병식에서 보게 됐고 미국은
tactical truck or MUT, most servicemen generally refer In the jungles of Vietnam, the U.S. Army faced a new kind of war. Helicopters became the new workhorses of battle, delivering troops, firepower, and supplies into some of the most unforgiving terrain on Earth. This is the U.S. Army in Vietnam, the era of air mobility, fierce firefights, and unwavering brotherhood. And over the music marching through, the roar of these legendary Army helicopters takes to the air. Flying overhead right now, they help define the Vietnam War. That staccato beat of the rotor blades was a welcome sound to many troops mired in combat. From transport and medevac to close air support and reconnaissance, they brought the fight to the front and pulled the wounded to safety. The OH-6 Cayuse scouted the terrain with unmatched agility. The AH-1 Cobra, also nicknamed the Snake, brought serious firepower. Its slim design, as you can see here, team of around 100 soldiers, which then expanded to more than 600 over the next decade. As the war intensified, troops numbers quickly grew as the war between the South Vietnamese government and the communist insurgents supported by North Vietnam intensified. By January 1969, more than 364,200 soldiers organized around 7 divisions and 20 separate combat brigades. The United States began withdrawing its forces in July of 1969, and the last Army combat unit left South Vietnam in August of '71. The last U.S. combat soldier came home March 1973, while a small number of non-combat personnel remained until April 1975. Representing the Vietnam War era is the 101st Airborne Division based out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky. The unit is wearing replica Vietnam War uniforms signifying the soldiers who served our nation during this time. Blistering heat, thick humidity, and unforgiving terrain demanded uniform innovation. And the Army, they delivered. New lightweight uniforms were constructed to move with the soldier. The M16 replaced the M1 Garand, calling for redesigned ammo gear and faster reloads in combat. Body armor got smarter, jackets and trousers got lighter, and field equipment was reimagined to meet the mission head-on. Gone were the heavy Mickey Mouse boots, replaced by canvas tropical combat boots that offered better grip, faster. Had assembled in the Saudi Arabian desert. In mid-January 1991, the U.S.-led coalition began Operation Desert Storm, which kicked off with an intensive air campaign designed to knock out key Iraqi infrastructure and weaken Iraqi forces. The ground offensive was launched in early 1991, where military forces overwhelmingly destroyed enemy tanks and vehicles. After only 100 hours of ground combat, coalition troops liberated Kuwait, and the Gulf War ended with Iraq's surrender. From Fort Riley, Kansas, this is the 1st Infantry Division, one of the Army's most storied divisions. Nicknamed the Big Red One because of the distinctive red on their unit patch. As the oldest continuously serving division in the U.S. Army, the unit has participated in every major operation since World War I, living up to its motto, no mission too difficult, no sacrifice too great, duty first. The 1st Infantry Division was originally established as the 1st Expeditionary Division in 1917 and spearheaded the American Expeditionary Forces in France during World War I. In World War II, the Fighting First stormed Omaha Beach on D-Day and liberated Nazi concentration camps. The highly decorated unit has had 37 members of the Big Red One awarded the Medal of Honor. In Washington, D.C., the 1st Division Monument stands in President's Park, memorializing those who died while serving in the 1st Infantry Division. Ladies and gentlemen, they are the Big Red One, the 1st Infantry Division. More military rolling stock. During Operation Desert Storm, the M2 Bradley fighting vehicle proved its value on the battlefield. It is fast, it is tough, and it is lethal. Named for General Omar Bradley, a leader from West Point's famed class of 1916, the Bradley was built to carry troops into combat with protection and power. Armed with a 25mm chain-driven cannon and twin-tube-launched, optically tacked, wire-guided missiles, it played a critical role in clearing the way during the ground assault into Iraq. While the Paladin looks and sounds like a tank, it is technically a self-propelled howitzer that was first introduced back in the 1960s. Over the years, it's been upgraded to perform in versatile battlefields from Vietnam to the Soviet Union to Iraq. First used in Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm, the M119 howitzer brought precision firepower to the front lines. Lighter and more mobile than larger artillery, it was built for the infantry brigade, able to fire high into the air or directly at the target depending on the mission. Whether used in battery formation or as a standalone support weapon, the M119 delivered reliable, responsive fire when it mattered most. Still in service today, including on the front lines in Ukraine, it remains a trusted part of the Army's arsenal. Special thanks to our sponsor, UFC. On September 11, 2001, terrorists destroyed the World Trade Center in New York City and struck the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. using commercial airliners. In response, the U.S. launched the global war on terrorism. The U.S. would stop potential threats around the world and take the fight to terrorist groups and the nations that back them. The Army immediately deployed forces to Afghanistan to destroy Osama bin Laden's al-Qaeda terrorist organization and depose his sponsors, the ruling Taliban. The 2003 President Bush expanded the war to Iraq. Soldiers and other armed services overthrew Iraq's dictator Saddam Hussein.
Not just this law enforcement presence, but ICE. What neighborhood do you live in? What community do you live in?
We live in El Monte, California.
So in El Monte, I mean, just east of where we are right now, there have been reports, not exactly in El Monte, and let's correct me if I'm wrong, but there have been reports in and around a lot of different parts of LA County of ICE rolling around and through the streets. Have you guys heard anything? People you know, people you care about?
Yes, we have. They're actually all around El Monte, the San Gabriel Valley. We were protesting there last night, too. It's from 8 a.m. in the morning until nighttime.
All right, you guys, you want to tell me your names or no?
No, it's okay.
Okay, respect. All right, take care, you guys. So, Ari, you heard it from them. Peaceful. You know, they want to remain peaceful. People, go ahead.
Yeah, Jacob, thank you. And it's very striking to sort of see, as you move around, you're giving us even more of a reality check on what it looks like, and also, as you've observed, where most of the protesters are, with signs, with insignias, but largely assembling peacefully. We're going to keep coming back to you. We've got the turn of the hour here, so our thanks to Jacob Sobroff and his team. I'm Ari Melber here signing off on this hour, but our special coverage on this big day continues right now with Chris Hayes.
All right, thank you, Ari. Really appreciate that. It is 7 o'clock here in New York. I am Chris Hayes. I'm joined by colleagues. Ari Melber is going to be coming back later in the hour, as well as Jen Psaki. We are, of course, monitoring a bunch of stories today on a very overwhelming day at this particular junction in American history. A set of images and threads weaving together in front of us. The pictures that you see before you, of course, the military festivities underway in the nation's capital. Those something that Donald Trump long sought, dating back to his first inauguration. He is getting the military parade he has long wanted today, ostensibly for the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army, but many people will point out the parade also happens to fall on the birthday, the 79th birthday of President Trump. 6,600 soldiers, along with 50 military aircraft, 150 vehicles are expected to make their way down Constitution Avenue throughout the evening, something we haven't seen since the end of the first Gulf War and haven't seen during peacetime in far longer. At the same time, on this same day, tens of thousands, and that might be a conservative estimate, tens of thousands of people across the country in large cities and small towns and everything in between have been in the streets protesting the policies of President Trump, including, of course, as you just saw there, and we will return to in a moment, in Los Angeles, where the president deployed the National Guard, the state of California says illegally, as well as Marines, truly and rarely done last weekend. The government says to stifle anti-ICE protests. The day began with something that was not planned and was not anticipated, that were not set pieces like these that we've seen unfurling before us. The day began with a shocking crowd control tactics to get people away from the federal building. What's the scene there now?
So we're now one bridge over, Chris. So we are on North Main Street, and you can see that obviously the tactic is to clear both of the overpasses. Thank you very much. That are crossing the 101 freeway. You can see, and these guys are being actually much more of a relaxed posture, even though they're in their tactical gear. CHP is slow walking people off of this bridge. But Chris, what I want to show you is obviously, let's flip around, JB. Look over here, Chris. These are peaceful protesters, and they have been peaceful protesters all day long. People representing their Mexican heritage, Guatemalan heritage, Salvadoran heritage. People representing the United Farm Workers with a sign here. People protesting the policies of the Trump administration. So I have to say, if I seem startled when that happened, it's because I was. The posture of protesters out here today has been peaceful. There has been some tension. People have gone face to face with those National Guard troops and the Marines right on the front of the steps of the federal building. But if you come over here to the 101, honestly, people on the freeway, Chris, and take a look over there, JB, are honking, supporting. They're happy to see the protesters out here on the streets. Stephen Miller called these flags a sign of an invasion. Everyone you talk to says it's because they're proud of their heritage. Let me ask you, you're flying a flag that looks like the hybrid of the Mexican-American flag. Why?
Because my daughters are from Mexico and USA.
You're from both?
They're from both, yes.
And you're proud of your heritage from both countries?
Yes.
And I think when you hear the politicians, Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, people back in the White House say, that flag's a sign of an invasion. And
but they're looking for that particular man right now. Thank you.
CNN correspondent Veronica Miracle is with us now. And Veronica, what's the latest on the investigation?
Well, Boris and Brianna, the FBI says they are using every available resource so they can find Vance Bolter, the suspect. They also have released that they have a $50,000 reward for anyone who has information leading to his arrest. Now, they believe that he's possibly in the Twin Cities area. He was last seen on surveillance video at a business in Minneapolis. This morning, he was wearing a cowboy hat. He had some kind of dark bag, and they released that photo. They're hoping that somebody in the area has seen him. He was actually spotted at multiple different locations on cameras. They didn't release all of them, just that one there as part of their investigation, but they believe he could be in the area. They have also alerted all of this to the U.S.-Canadian border facilities, Border Patrol. They are concerned that potentially he is trying to flee the country, and that's about a less than 7-hour drive from Minneapolis to the border. So certainly there is high alert all over the region. Boris, Brianna.
All right, Veronica Miracle, thank you so much for that.
Yeah, let's bring in former FBI Deputy Director and CNN Senior Law Enforcement Analyst Andrew McCabe to walk us through this kind of investigation. Andrew, thanks for being with us. I wonder what you make of officials saying that the suspect is no longer in the Brooklyn Park area. The shelter in place there is lifted, but I wonder what you see as the radius of risk for folks in the region.
Yeah, that's a really hard thing to estimate at this point in the manhunt bore. So by lifting the shelter-in-place order, they're basically conceding that he is not thought to be in the immediate area, in that immediate residential neighborhood in which the last shooting took place. And actually, if you look at that neighborhood, they originally put in the shelter in place in a 3-mile radius around the golf course. That would incorporate literally thousands of residences. It's a very densely packed area with tons of structures, residential and business structures, things like that. So many places where he could potentially hide. But clearly law enforcement thinks he is on the run. They're citing him at cameras, which is a good thing. His appearance on the doorbell camera at one of those residences, in which they suspect he was wearing a rubber mask to essentially pass himself off as someone who is bald. He's not bald, of course, in real life. All of that indicates that he went into these attacks planning on changing his appearance immediately after the attack so that he could facilitate his exit from the area and not match up with the description that was originally put out. The raid jacket, or I'm sorry, the Kevlar vest and the blue uniform pants and shirt. So he's obviously put a lot of time into this, a lot of thought into it. He is unfortunately one step ahead of them right now, but their investigation will focus on contacts, associates, vehicles, things that he absolutely will have to rely on to keep moving forward, access to credit cards, cash accounts, things like that. Because at some point he's going to have to start reaching out to people for help or rely on those sources of support, vehicles, cash, what have you, that are known to authorities.
Delighted that this has come off, that there was all this hesitation and all this criticism. This is the Army's 250th birthday. How cool is that? The Army predates the nation by a little over a year. You couldn't have the nation without the Army. The Army represents the nation's determination to maintain its freedom, the liberty of the people within the nation. This is just great. It's going to be wonderful for recruiting. You couldn't spend recruiting dollars so effectively as the some $40 million that was put into this very worthwhile celebration.
Chuck, what is your message as someone that has commanded troops? What is your message to the next generation that are signing up for the Army today?
Well, America is worth defending, and if you're able-bodied, if you have discipline and you think that you can withstand basic training and the challenges that are going to be put in front of you, it's a great way to serve your nation and develop as a human being. You learn discipline, you learn toughness, and you know, you get a lot of education too. The Army paid for my college at Claremont-McKenna College. I never could have afforded to go if it wasn't for that ROTC scholarship.
And sir, I was struck by, in reading about all of these regiments that we've been seeing go by, how many have names attached to them. We refer to them now because of storied battles of history in World War I and even earlier, and World War II, where it imprinted on the regiment, you know, that amount of bravery, the tide-turning battles that they fought in. So what is that kind of legacy like to watch unfold here in real time, sir?
Well, it's wonderful, and it means a lot to the units. You know, I had the opportunity to serve for a little bit with the 3rd Armored Cavalry, and they have the moniker Brave Rifles. And it comes from the Spanish-American War, when the commander-in-chief of that conflict, Zachary Taylor, as I recall, was so impressed with their performance in combat that they earned the moniker Brave Rifles, and they have it to this day.
So Chuck, tell us, as we continue to watch this performance right here, what does the enemy think about this? Are they shaking?
Absolutely. You know, I believe in peace through strength. I know that President Trump believes in peace through strength. You certainly invite conflict by projecting weakness. And this sort of a projection, even though it's for the 250th birthday, it couldn't have come at a better time when you have enemies of freedom and enemies of America gathering on the horizon. A good parade like this really shows them that America means business and can defend itself and its interests here and abroad.
Roger that, brother. We appreciate you joining us, Chuck.
And nothing like a little soundtrack to Van Halen and Metallica and everything else. You can see everyone in the crowd is rocking out, guys. This is the best night ever, and still ahead, the Reenlistment ceremony with President Trump himself. Stay right here.
Oh, baby.
Don't you hate that dirty old hose? It kinks, splits, and it always leaks.
Question. It's, you know, Speaker Hortman was somebody who always believed in debate and believed in things like protest and made sure that people's voices were heard. But in a time where there's political violence of this sort of magnitude, there needs to be more that's done to make sure that there is room for healthy debate and disagreement. But this kind of violence cannot happen. This kind of violence against our community can't happen, and we need to make sure that it stops. And anyone who is in a position to call out and condemn extremism needs to be doing that right now, because it doesn't matter what party you're in, where you live, what you look like, what you believe. This violence is unacceptable.
Who's described as 6'1", weighing about 220 pounds, is armed and dangerous. He showed up, they say, at these homes impersonating a police officer. That's how he was able to, they believe, gain access. He also had a vehicle that was designed and mimicked a squad car. There was an exchange of gunfire between members of law enforcement as well as this suspect. Here's what happened, if we have a little bit of time for the backstory. When that call came in around 2 a.m., a sergeant there in Champlin, Minnesota, which is a suburb of Minneapolis, called his